one of the tricks to having a successful journey is making sure that you're not taking decisions purely based on the attractiveness or the money package related to the job. I feel that in some cases people get derailed because they're looking for a more attractive package. What some people tend to forget is sometimes the package is attractive because the company has been unsuccessful in attracting and retaining the right people. So, just going for a higher salary without looking at the reasons for that higher salary might actually create more problems for you later on.
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, I've seen that many times before as a recruiter, and in need to attract candidates, some companies do have to offer extremely competitive salaries packages in order to get the person on board. But that doesn't mean, it is the right decision.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got nothing against money, but it's not something that is the most critical element, especially when you're starting out on the journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I typically tell younger people who ask me about the planning of their journey, right? Is in the first 7 or 8 years of your career, okay, don't go after the money. Go after the experience, go after the responsibility. Because in any company, whatever it is, right, people who tend to go up very fast tend to come down the other side even faster. And it's not even a linear increase, right? It's not a regular, it's more of an exponential climb. So for the first 6 or 7 years, you think you're getting nowhere. Although people who look at your CV would be able to see elements like consistency and hard work and difficulties that you faced. But then after that, once you kind of go through that trial period where you're accumulating knowledge in the meantime, that's when you get into territory where there's less competition. So now where you were previously applying for jobs where there were 200-300 applicants, right? Now you're potentially applying for jobs where there's 20, 30, 40. And that makes it much faster for you, much easier for you to get ahead.
Yeah, no, really, really good advice in terms of focus on the experience in the early stage of your career rather than the remuneration, which of course can take people's I suppose interest into roles rather than the actual job itself.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm assuming that there's obviously challenges along the way. It's quite overwhelming going into some of these leadership positions, especially as you mentioned earlier in your career when you're making the transition and you're trying to develop yourself. Can you share an instance where you've, I suppose, encountered quite a difficult situation in your career and the strategies that you've employed to address that?
Yeah. Before I do that, I'll just go back a bit. And there's a key piece of advice which I've been given very early on in my career, and I would like to give to people starting out. And this is steady and slow, right? In the tradition of the Aesop's fable about the hare and the tortoise, right? At the end of the day, it's the tortoise which wins the race because it keeps on moving steadily, right? And one thing is moving ahead, right? So if you need to change positions, again, think before you leap, but not necessarily delay those decisions. If you're not moving upwards, at least you should be moving sideways, where you're learning about new products, whether you're learning new skills, whether you're taking on new responsibilities within your current role. Okay? Whilst you're waiting, at least you should be doing something. You should definitely not be stagnating on the one thing that you were originally employed to do. If you do that, right, I can guarantee that you will be successful in anything you do, because even when you apply for a job which has bigger scope, right, in terms of, say, the number of people you will be responsible for or the number of countries. If you don't have to add to that the need to learn about new products because you've already done it in your previous job, then that allows you to focus on the difference between your new job and your current job, which guarantees that you are more likely to be successful. Coming back to your question, so yeah, again, in my experience, and I've done a lot of these, so my experience has been mainly around restructuring and redesigning new businesses.
Okay.
And it's also the flip side of that. It's going into businesses which have problems and remediating parts or all of them in terms of QMS.
Okay. Yeah.
So in both these situations, you've got a very high stress situation when you've got a new business, a startup, or something which is to be completely redesigned or restructured. What you've got is people who are under a lot of pressure with timetables and deadlines. And on the other hand, when you've got remediation, the clock is ticking. So you've already been caught red-handed. Some people may have been dismissed. Some people may have been fired. The morale is really low. People see you come in from the outside and they're scared. Right? In both situations, these are high stress, high adrenaline situations, and many people will be apprehensive and potentially negative about the future. And the ability of a quality leader is to pull all the levers to ensure that something like this gets to its desired conclusion. So in some cases, you may need to do surgery very soon after you join, right? Whilst there's pain, whilst there's very, very similar analogy to medicine, right? An amputation would be better early on rather than later in the recovery of a person. But more and more, I find that the main thing to do is to put yourself in the shoes of people. Once you understand exactly what the thoughts are, the motivations are, then you can start to align those with the aims, with the intentions of the executive board, of the company, senior management who want to see results, right? You can't be on one side of that equation because the other side will view you with suspicion. Sometimes the less turbulence you create, if you can do without the amputations and use an antibiotic instead, again, keeping the analogy alive, it's probably better in the long run. And once your plan has been tailored to the company, to the people, it stands a much greater chance of acceptance and success. Of course, this relies almost exclusively on people being honest and transparent, which is why I told you early on, I feel that integrity and transparency in communication is key, because you can't bring it back after it fails, right? If you try it once and it doesn't work and people think you're not saying the truth or that you don't have a chance of success, you can never come back from that. And that might be the time when you consider moving on to another position, because some of the situations, let's face it, are not easily recoverable. There are some people who, unfortunately, because that's humankind all over the world, when you tell them what's going to happen, they will not believe it until they actually see it happen. In which case, a lot of your value from experience and qualifications trying to predict something is lost. If you tell someone you're going to crash and they say, oh, I don't think so, and then they crash, what's the point of asking me whether you're going to crash or not? And that's where then the professionalism comes in. And again, where the need to disassociate yourself from the money. Some people stay on too late because the money is good, right? And at that point, you compromise your integrity Because when things, as they inevitably do in these situations, go wrong, when people don't want to listen, you will start to be associated with them. Whereas you want to continue being associated with the patient's interest, with the interest of quality, with the regulations and regulatory compliance. That's what you're hired for, and that's what you should stick to. You'll make more money in the long run, much more than if you are associated with failures and potential non-compliances.